Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and today's show is a very poignant show because we're highlighting an issue that needs to be addressed, that needs awareness in the black community, in these minority communities, not just the black community. Well, to be fair, in all communities, black, white, whoever, all communities are dealing with mental health issues. But we're not talking about everybody this month, even though everybody needs their mental health check. The reason we're talking about the black community or the minorities is because July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Yes, every month has something. Every month has some sort of awareness, and it used to be sickening when I was a little younger. And I say a little younger, I'm talking 5 6 years ago, when all of these different awareness months and holidays will pop up out the blue that you never heard of when you was growing up. But now that I'm older and more mature, yeah, it took me 40 years, 40 something years to get to that point. But now that I'm more mature, I see the importance of these awareness months, or even a day that's set aside to draw awareness to a certain issue. And so this month is National Minority Health, Mental Health Awareness Month, and it is observed every January to bring awareness to the challenges that some racial and ethnic minority groups face regarding mental health. Now, I'm not here today to debate who goes through the worst forms of mental health. Uh, oh well, white people got it just as bad, Kevin. I'm not debating that. I mean, everybody goes through something. I started off saying that, and so I want to be clear with that message. But since this month, the month of July, is set aside for this particular awareness, that's what we're discussing today. This is not to denigrate any other ethnic group, any other race at all. Because I support mental health for everybody, all races, creeds, identities, whatever the case may be. I support mental health for all. But in honor of today's show, since we're talking minority mental health, we're going to review a film that is a little unknown, I guess you could say. I do know some people that have seen it, but when this movie came out, I knew absolutely nothing about it. And the only reason I knew something about it is because it starred Halle Berry. And I didn't see it in theaters, but I did rent it when it came out in 2010. Probably saw it in 2011. I don't even remember when I actually saw it. But the film is Frankie and Alice. And that film touches in on Halle Berry's character, who deals with a form of mental health disorder. So we're going to review that film, but first we're going to go through the obstacles, some of the obstacles that face these racial and ethnic minority groups concerning mental health, because it's not easy for certain groups to get help, believe it or not. And even more disturbing, these groups, some in these groups don't even acknowledge that they have a mental health problem. You know, especially in the black community, it was always pick ourselves up by our bootstraps type of deal, or shake that off. We would bottle that stuff in. We never, at least when I was growing up, going to a therapist or going to seek help, that wasn't in the cards. Now, a lot of that's because help, a lot of help wasn't provided to the black community, but now it is, and I'm happy that a lot of people in my community are starting to go to therapists, are starting to treat their mental health more seriously, just as serious as their physical health. You know, if you're sick, you go to the doctor. If you're hurting, you go to the doctor. And we ought to do the same thing when it comes to our mental state. You know, it's just as fragile as our bodies. And so it's good to see that people in my community, people in minority communities as a whole, are seeking help, because mental health matters. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well being. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act, handle stress, relate to others, make choices, you know, make different decisions. Mental health is just as important as physical health in all stages of life. Mental health issues are common. About 1 in 5 American adults experience a mental illness each year. Mental health issues are treatable and often preventable. However, people in some racial and ethnic minority groups face obstacles to maintain positive mental health. Mental health care is important for mental well being, yet, many people from racial and ethnic minority groups face obstacles in accessing needed care. These obstacles may include lack of or insufficient health insurance, lack of racial and ethnic diversity among mental health care providers, lack of culturally competent providers, financial stress, and the stigma. Racism negatively impacts mental health. I know that's a big duh, but racism contributes to unequal access to resources and services, including mental health care. Firsthand experience of racial discrimination, as well as witnessing or hearing about discrimination from others or in the media, can cause and intensify stress and racial trauma. All of society benefits when people from racial and ethnic minority groups have access to mental health care. Supportive social conditions, freedom from stressors that can compromise mental health, and access to other resources needed for health. We all have a role to play in promoting health equality. Here are some examples of how working together for mental health equality works. The individual side of it. You can learn about healthy ways to cope with stress and respond to loss. When possible, engage in these practices. Get help for mental health issues through free and confident resources. Learn about mental health and take a mental health quiz. Share information on mental health, healthy coping skills, and resources for family, friends, neighbors, and other members of your community. Encourage open conversation about mental health and use non-stigmatic language when talking about mental health issues. Here's what public health organizations can do. Ensure mental health programming incorporates ideas and decision making from appropriately represented people of racial and ethnic minority groups at all stages of programming, from planning to implementing the plan and evaluation. Consider the data on mental health when developing organized priorities and programs. Measure the impact of racism on mental health and develop best practices for reducing racism and its consequences. Ensure mental health educational materials are culturally appropriate and follow health equality principles for communication, such as using plain language. Take intentional steps to increase the reach of mental health information to racially and ethnic minority groups through cultural response communication outlets. establish and foster partnerships with other organizations to fill gaps in reach or expansion. Verify and promote available free and low cost mental health resources. Explore referrals to mental health services to ensure those served can effectively connect with needed resources. Here's what the healthcare systems can do: screen patients for depression and other mental health conditions and refer patients to accessible mental health care services. Make mental health educational materials available to all patients during their appointments via uh, patient portals and in the waiting rooms. Make efforts to recruit mental health care providers that reflect the race and ethnicity of the population they serve. Provide cultural humility training to mental health care providers. Ensure mental health care services are culturally appropriate. States and communities can also get in on this by expand expanding community-based mental health care that provides culturally responsive mental health services at low or no cost to youths and adults. Evaluate policies for their differential impact on social dynamics of health, and when needed, modify those policies or create new policies that ensure equal access to resources for people from all races and ethnic groups. Evaluate policies for their potential to reinforce mental health stigma and revise or remove stigmatized policies. Encourage community and faith based leaders to have positive dialogue and discussions around mental health issues to help reduce stigma. Make efforts to ensure decision makers reflect the races and ethnicities of the population they serve. Now, let me throw some numbers at you. 13.4% of the United States population is black. Of those, over 16% reported having a mental illness in this past year. That is roughly 7 million people. That is more than the population of Chicago, Houston, and Philadelphia combined. That that is a lot of people. I've been to Houston. I can't speak to the other two, but I've been to Houston, and Houston is a big city, so I can imagine, three times of that, three times the population of just Houston. My God. But overall, mental health conditions occur in black people in America at about the same or less frequent than the white community. However, the historically black experience in America has and continue to be characterized by trauma and violence more often than their white counterparts, and impacts emotional and mental health of both youths and adults. Historical dehumanization, oppression, and violence against black people have evolved into present day racism, structurally, individually, institutionally, and culturally. Processing and dealing with layers of individual trauma on top of new mass traumas that was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic a couple of years ago, police brutality, and diverse political rhetoric adds compounding layers of complexity for individuals to responsibly manage. Help seeking behavior is affected by mistrust of the medical system and often begins with faith based outreach. However, mental health screening data shows that black people who screen positive for depression self identify as planning to seek help at higher risk than the general population says they will seek help. Unfortunately, black providers who are known to give more appropriate and effective care to Black help seekers, make up a very small portion of the behavior health provider workforce. Because of these factors, and more Black people are more likely to experience chronic rather than episodic healthcare conditions. Yet, hope for recovery still remains as light is shed on these issues and the general public holds accountable policymakers and health systems to evolve better systems which eliminate inequalities in mental health services. Here are some more numbers I want to throw at you. According to the most recent census data available, 55% of all Black people lived in the South, 18% lived in the Midwest, 17% lived in the Northeast, and 10% live in the West. The Black immigrant population in the United States increased from 816,000 in 1980 to over 4.2 million by 2016. 39% were from Africa and nearly half were from the Caribbean. Overall, 24% of Black people have a bachelor's degree or higher as of 2017. More than 1 of 5 Black people in the United States live in poverty as of 2018. I'm that one. Women women are the heads of the household in roughly 30% of Black homes, compared to 9% in white homes. That is disturbing. And it's true. I can't even, to be honest with you, I thought that number would be higher. Going by people I know, people I associate with, it is so sad that women are the heads of house. And I'm not saying it's sad because women aren't capable. I'm saying it's sad because men are stupid. So that is really, really sad. Despite progress made over the years, racism continues to have an impact on the mental health of Black people. Negative stereotypes and attitudes of rejection have decreased, but continue to occur with measurable consequences. Historically and contemporary instances of negative treatment have led to the mistrust of authorities, many of whom are not seen as having the best intentions of Black people in mind. Black people living below poverty are twice as likely to report serious psychological distress than those living over 2 times the poverty level. Adult Blacks are more likely to have feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and worthlessness than adult whites. Blacks are likely or less likely than white people to die from suicide at all ages. However, Black teenagers are more likely to attempt suicide than white teenagers. That is a number of 9.8% versus 6.1%. 16%, that is roughly 4.8 million of Black people reported having a mental health illness, and 22.4% of those, that's roughly 1.1 million people, reported a serious mental health illness over the past year. Serious mental health illness rose among all ages of Black people between 2008 and 2018. Despite rates being less than the overall U.S. population, major depression episodes increased from 9% to 10.3% in Black youths. That's a age range from 12 to 17. 6.1% to 9.4% in young adults, that's 18 to 25, and 5.7% to 6.3% in the age range between 26 and 49 years old. That is between uh 2015 to 2018. Suicidal thoughts, plans, and attempts are also rising among black young adults. While still lower than the overall U.S. population age 18 to 25, 9.5%, that's roughly 439,000 of blacks 18 to 25 years old are seriously thinking of suicide in 2018, compared to 6%, that's roughly uh 275,000 in 2008. 3.6%, that's 166,000, made a plan to commit suicide in 2018, compared to 2.1%, that's 96,000 in 2008. And 2.4%, that's 111,000, made an attempt of suicide in 2018, compared to 1.5%, that's 70,000 young black people in 2008. Binge drinking, smoking, as whether it's cigarettes or marijuana, illicit drug use, and prescription pain relievers misuse are more frequent among black adults with mental illness. Blacks hold beliefs related to stigma, psychological openness, and help seeking, which in turn affects their coping behaviors. The participants of a study conducted in 2013 were not very open to acknowledging psychological problems, but they were somewhat open to seek mental health services. 30% of participants reported having a mental illness or received treatment for a mental illness. Black men are particularly concerned about stigma, and this rings true in the black community because when you growing up, you're not supposed to show weakness. You know, as a black man, as a kid, you don't show weakness. You just bottle that crap up. You know, that's the way you were raised. You know, and it is no knock on the parents that did that. That's just what they knew. You know, like, shake that off. You know, get over it. That was the attitude towards it. But and it was harmless advice, but you do need help. You know, sometimes bottling that up don't help. Well, sometimes none of that. none. You are not supposed to bottle up your emotions, your feelings, anything that is affecting you mentally. And so, you need to talk it out. And you know, when you know better, you do better. And I don't think parents in generations past knew that. You know, plus you didn't have access, as we've been discussing thus far in this episode. You didn't have access to mental health specialists, you know, psychiatrists or counselors and things of that nature. And so I could attest to that. Now, I wasn't encouraged to suck it up, and I did that on my own, really. I just never talked. I always just bottled my feelings up when I was growing up, even into adulthood. It's not until recently I started opening up more, and I'll get into my personal story a little later. But but that little nugget there, I can attest to because I am a black man, and I can't speak on that particular issue, which leads to this other part of this survey that was conducted a few years ago, about 10 years ago, actually. Participants in the study appeared apprehensive about seeking professional help for mental health issues. However, participants were willing to seek out some form of help. And that goes in, you know, goes in line with what I was saying before. We seeking help was you looked upon as weird if you go seek help. You know, like something wrong with you, like you're crazy if you go to a psychiatrist. You know, that was the stigma on seeking help, and I'm so grateful that it's not that anymore. I'm pretty sure people still think that, you know, about certain individuals, but at the end of the day, they're doing the right thing. And speaking of treatment, uh, black people are more often diagnosed with schizophrenia and less often diagnosed with mood disorder compared to white people with the same problem. Additionally, they are offered medication or therapy at a lower rate than the general public. Black people are overrepresented in our jails and prisons. Black people make up 13% of the general U.S. population and nearly 40% of the prison population. In 2016, the imprisonment rate for black men, 2,417 per 100,000 black male residents, was more than 6 times greater than that of white men, 401 per 100,000 white male residents. And the imprisonment rate for black women, 97 per 100,000 black female residents, were among double for the white women, 49 per 100,000 female white residents. Black people with mental health conditions, specifically those involving psychosis, are more likely to be in jail or prison than people from other races. Because less than 2% of America's Psychological Association members are black, some may worry that mental health care practitioners are not culturally comparable enough to treat their specific issues. Stigma and judgment prevents black people from seeking treatment for their mental illness. Research indicates that blacks believe that mild depression or anxiety would be considered crazy in those social circles. Furthermore, many believe that discussions about mental illness will not be appropriate even amongst family. And more often than not, this could lead to thoughts of suicide or the act of suicide. And a lot of mental health victims or patients or those who going through it who bottle it in, and you heard me say this a lot throughout this show, bottling in your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts is dangerous. It's like a time bomb just waiting to explode. The more you keep piling on, you're going to eventually explode, and that can explode in a violent manner, either towards others or to yourself. And this is one of the scariest aspects of dealing with mental health issues. And we can all help. We can all help in this fight, especially when it's those who are going through these issues in some shape, form, or fashion. So you may ask, well, how do I help? Well, I'm glad you asked. You could be an active part of your loved one's support system and check in on them often. If they show or discuss any of the most common warning signs of suicide, be direct. Don't piddle around with the conversation. Be straight up front with them. Tell them it's okay to talk about suicidal feelings. Practice active listening techniques and let them talk without judgment. Mental health support among black communities is not a monolith. Each person cares vary based on their gender, their age, their ability, location, and a multitude of other factors. There are many social, structural, and systematic factors that impact one's wellness and ability to thrive. The suicide rate among black youths has not been found to be increasingly faster than any other race or ethnic group. Members of the black community face structural racism that can lead to barriers to access the care and treatment they need. Only 1 in 3 black adults who need mental health care, receive it. Research local resources. Don't be afraid to get your loved ones the help that they truly need. Support them in identifying others to talk to that may understand exactly how they feel, whether it's a family member, a friend, it could be a coworker, it could be your pastor, it could be any type of spiritual leader, somebody who can identify with that person and their needs. And it could be a loved one, and it could be you. And I just want to take this moment to discuss my mental health and the steps that I'm taking to try to heal, I guess you could say. I wasn't I wasn't raised in any trauma. You know, I had it good. And this isn't a brag. This isn't a flex. I'm just saying I didn't go through what a lot of my friends, even some family members, have gone through with broken homes or abuse or stuff like that. I didn't have those issues. But what I did have was depression. And I dealt with depression basically the majority of my life, and even into my adulthood as recently as recent, depression. And it comes, and when it happens to me, it just comes. Everything could be going fine. Life is good, and just out of the blue, my spirit is broken. I'm just moping around. It's hard to describe, but it's soul crushing because I have loved ones around me who do ask. My wife asks, like, "Hey, what's wrong? There's something wrong? You need to talk." And honestly, I do want to talk, but I don't know what to talk about. It's like I don't know what the problem is. I just know I have a problem. I don't know how to describe it, but I am going through something. And it's hard. It is very hard, and I've dealt with that my entire life. But I thank God that my wife is here for me. My children are here for me, and I have family and loved ones who are here for me. And also, I have ADHD. I always felt that I had it, but it wasn't until recently I knew that I actually had it. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, she has it. And she has ADHD. And it really that really put me in depression because I know where she got it from. And I knew throughout her childhood certain things that she would do. I wouldn't get mad because I like, well, that's me, and I know exactly what she's going through. But the part that got me mad is I didn't press the issue when it happened. I didn't seek help for my daughter when I identified it. It wasn't until just the past couple of years when we were like, you know what? We all need to go to some form of counseling, some form of therapy. And she is getting better. Ever since she started going to counseling and stuff. And I get mad, I'm getting mad not thinking about it. I get mad because I should have been did this. I should have been seeking the help that not only my daughter, but me, my wife, my other daughter also needed. We all need help. And as I said earlier, there are so many means. If you're too proud to go in front of a stranger, a therapist or a counselor, go to your pastor, go to one of your spiritual leaders. If you don't want to do that, talk to a loved one, talk to your best friend. That's what a friend is for, I thought. That's what a friend is for. And in my case, I would be going through so much mentally, and all my friends always call me. I'm always that person that they can lean on and talk to and vent to. Not to say that I give A+ advice to them, because I really don't. I don't give advice because my advice could be wrong, and if it lead them wrong, I don't want to be like them to be like, oh, you told me such and such. Now look at it. I don't want to be the cause of that. So I never give advice, but I am here for an ear. And all my friends always come to me and talk, and they feel better after they talk to me. But while I'm listening to them, being there for them, I'm going through my own thing, but I'm too stubborn to tell him about it. At least I was. Now it's different. Now I would discuss it more. Now I would communicate more with my wife, something that I didn't do in the past. And it's better. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it is better. And going back to the suicide thoughts, that's something I dealt with as a teenager. I had suicidal thoughts. I had bouts of depression where I just wanted to go. I felt that my life was pointless here on this earth. Yeah, and when I think back on it, I'm like, oh, that was stupid, because I think about all I've accomplished in my life and would have made that final decision 20, 25 years ago, however long it was. My kids wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have married my wife. I wouldn't have started this podcast. It's a lot of things in my life that I'm proud of, since I became an adult, that I wouldn't accomplish. And at the time when I was feeling like this, I never thought that I would be to this point. Never thought that I'll be sitting behind this microphone talking to people, and here I am. But just because I was not, I guess, man enough to go through it, there's a lot of people that has no problem with it, that would do it. And that's the part that scares me. What if something would have happened? What if that one little thing would have happened that would have triggered me to make that decision? Because that's all it would have took at that moment, the moments I were feeling that, because it was a few moments that I felt that in my life. Not when I got older. This was more when I was a teenager. But it was just one thing. I was just waiting. It was like I was sitting back waiting for that one thing to happen. That was like going to be the confirmation that I needed to go through with the act. Thank God it never happened. It didn't happen, but it was nothing being done to me. Like I said, I wasn't abused. I wasn't neglected. I wasn't a troubled youth. I was just depressed. I was just constantly depressed. And it felt like things that I was doing just wasn't right. I felt like everything I was doing was wrong. And it was like, I don't want to be here. I just want to check out. The world would be better. And I try to convince myself everybody would be happier if I wasn't here. And that's how I felt at that moment. And it was one of the rare moments in life that I was wrong. Yeah. So, check in on those who are going through something, who are dealing with something. And we all are dealing with something in some shape, form, or fashion. I don't care what it is. It could be family problems, marital problems, financial problems, job problems, any little thing. Or it could be just like I'm describing to you about me. It's just something like a chemical imbalance in my brain or in their brains that are causing them to feel this way. Talk. Don't have that attitude of, oh, I'm just going to leave them alone. Oh, they look like they mad, I'm going to leave them alone. Those type of situations. I know two people in my life who recently, in the past 3 years, two people who I know personally who have lost children tragically. And I can't wrap my head or fathom the thought of something happening to my girls. I don't know what I would do in anything. It could be just wake up one day and they don't wake up, but in those two cases, it was something outside forces that caused it. But I look at those two individuals. One is handling it the best way he can. I can look in his face and tell that those days come and it's troubling. He's struggling to get through the day. And those are the days where I talk to him and joke around with him, try to get his mind off of it. Just if it ain't nothing but for 5 minutes, You know what I'm saying? Just something to get his mind off of it for a little while. The other one is taking it so hard, and I can't joke and play with him like I do with the other guy, but I do talk. Now, there's a lot of people who stay away from him because he's constantly wearing sunglasses. He ain't looking at anybody. He has his head down. Momentarily throughout the day, he'll break down crying. It's just a simple hey, and I speak to him. I always talk to him. Hey, how's it going today? You all right today? You need to talk today? Just little things to let him know that I'm here. And those little things is sufficient, because he called me randomly one day and he told me, you're one of the only people that do that. And that just you asking a question or saying hey, saying good morning gets me through the rest of the day. And that made me feel like Superman, like, man, I saved the world. I feel like I saved the world by doing that, because I know in his mind he doesn't want to be here. He wants to be with his son. And it's hard. It is hard. I know losing my dad was the toughest thing on earth for me. And that was my dad. And he was sick, and I knew it was coming, but I still wasn't prepared. But I knew it was coming. In those two instances, they didn't see it coming. No parent is supposed to bury a child. It is in no shape, form, or fashion. There's no circumstance to whereas a parent is supposed to bury a child. And man, I know that is tough. But that's just one example of it, or two, should I say, of how people handle the same situation differently. And it's not to say that one is handling it, treating it like whatever, because I know it's rough for him. I know it. I know, because I've been knowing him for over 20 years. I've been knowing both of them for over 20 years, to be honest with you. But I know it's rough for both. Just as rough. One is just showing it on the outside more, whereas the other isn't. But they're handling similar situations very differently. And this is where loved ones' jobs come into play. We need to identify a problem and address a problem. Don't just say, oh boy, they're going through something, and keep walking. No, you have to address it. And I know we're all going through something. We're all going through something. And the last thing we want is to deal with somebody else's problems. But put yourself in their shoes. Wouldn't you want somebody to come to you? Wouldn't you want somebody to come console you or talk to you when you're feeling down? Then, that's what I always think of. Yeah, there are days that I feel blue, but then I look over, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. I'm not gloating or nothing. God knows I'm not. When I feel down and I'm at work or something and I'm around those two individuals and I look over at them and I just say to myself, like, well, it could be worse. No matter what I'm going through, it could be worse. I could be going through what they're going through right now. And it lifts me up, sadly. And I hate to put it in those terms, but it's true. It's true. All this stuff that we moan about, whine about, it's somebody going through something worse than you. There's somebody got it worse than you. No matter how bad it's gotten, there's somebody that got it worse than you. And we need to appreciate the life that we have. And we also got to be there for those who are in need. And so let's get into our review today. And this is a film that I watched. Like I said, I didn't go to the theater to see this. I didn't even know what this was. It was the only thing that got me that Halle Berry was on the cover. And, I'm a big Halle Berry fan. And I'm like, okay, well, let me see what this is all about. Frankie and Alice from 2010. It is a Canadian drama film directed by Jeffrey Sachs. It stars Halle Berry. is based on a true story about a popular go-go dancer slash stripper in the 1970s who has dissociative identity disorder. Starring along with Halle Berry, we have Stalin Skarsgård, Felicia Rashad, and Cassandra Wilson from Grey's Anatomy. And this movie was a very interesting film. And it was interesting in the case of, you can really look at this movie as being a glorified Lifetime movie or a glorified BET Plus original movie. It's not the greatest of films, quality wise. It just looks like a TV movie, and I can see why it didn't get a wide release. It really just went basically straight to video. But the thing that saves this movie, and I'm gonna say this statement, and I know that Halle Berry won an Academy Award for Monsters Ball, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all all. As much as I enjoy Monsters Ball for reasons, Halle Berry was not the greatest in that movie. To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you what that movie was about. I can tell you what a couple of scenes are in that movie. And if you've seen Monsters Ball, you know what I'm talking about. Not to mention it was filmed in the town that I currently live in right now, but that's neither here nor there. I did not think that was her best performance. Frankie and Alice is Halle Berry's greatest performance to date. And she has some great performances, or great to good performances, but this is her best, absolute best performance. As I said, she plays a go-go dancer who has dissociative identity disorder or split personality, however you want to quantify it. And she's playing three different characters. Frankie, who is who she is Frankie. There's Genius, who is a 7-year-old child, where she acts like a 7-year-old child. And the best one of her personalities, Alice, whereas she plays a Southern white racist. She and I'm laughing, but this is a tour de force of a performance. She nails all three characters perfectly, and it was a seamless transition between the three, and how her mind is breaking under the weight of these three different personalities is like, my God. I don't know how much the producers are paying you, Miss Berry, for this role, but you are severely underpaid. Severely. You ought to get 3 paychecks. if her set salary is $10 million a movie, I'm just throwing a number out. I don't know. It's probably more than that. But if it's $10 million a movie, she ought to get 30. She should have got 30 for this movie, because all three was amazing. And all this essentially came about due to some childhood trauma that she went through as a child. And it triggered these different personalities in her. And how this all plays out, how it gradually, it's like a mystery movie, you know. We're trying to put the clues together throughout this film to see what is the cause of this, you know, because this is set in the early 1970s. They didn't have all the technology that we have and enjoy today, and so identifying these disorders were it was near impossible at that time. So it was kind of a revolutionary method of treating this woman, and it was just a nice movie. As I said, the quality is kind of shaky, you know, but I really can't blame the film for that. If they only had a certain budget to work with, so they just had to roll with it, you know. But they made the most out of it, and I truly enjoyed this performance from Halle Berry. The movie is all right, but the performance is great. Halle Berry, I don't even think she was nominated for this movie, which is mind-boggling to me. beyond belief. I think she was nominated for a Golden Globe that year, but she didn't win that. But as far as the Academy Award, she wasn't even nominated, and that is a crime against nature. Frankie and Alice from 2010 gets a letter grade of a B, and all the majority of that B is Halle Berry in this role. It, I really, if you haven't seen Frankie and Alice, I implore you to find it somewhere. I don't know if it's on any streaming service or not, but please find it. Find it. It is a awesome performance by Halle Berry, and why I scratch my head when she pops up in those X-Men films and and all that, and I'm like, what is, who is this? This can't be the same woman I saw in this movie. I mean, rock solid, spellbinding performance. Check it out. Frankie and Alice gets a letter grade of a B. Yes, everybody, July. July is indeed National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And this month, be aware. Be aware. This is a important issue, a very serious issue, and something that needs to be addressed. And I hope and pray that everybody address their mental health. Take care of their mental health. I said earlier in the show, we feel sick, stomach hurts, head hurts, not feeling well. We'll run to the doctor and or the hospital. We gonna get better because we don't feel good, and nobody likes feeling bad. But it's the same thing with our mind. Our mind needs the same, if not more, amount of attention. And so if we're sick in the head or feeling ill in the head, we need to go to a doctor and get it checked out. And so everybody go check on your mental health. And even though this is minority health, mental health awareness month, I'm not only speaking to minorities, I'm speaking to everybody at this moment. Everybody go check on your mental health. You know, get the care that you need. If it's not provided, find somewhere where it can be provided. Make it a priority in your life, because you don't want to just rot away from the inside out. And that's what mental health can do to you as well as others, your loved ones who's around you. Your mental health also affects your loved ones who are around you. And so be thoughtful of that, you know, when you're just saying to yourself that, oh, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. You know, because that's what I used to say. I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. Nothing wrong. I'm all right. But I was really draining the life out of everybody in this house, you know, by saying that, by not addressing that. And, you know, it took me realizing that and feeling shameful of that, because I'm causing them to feel a certain type of way because I wouldn't address my problems. And I got to address them now. Now I have to address them. And so please, ma'am, please, sir, get your mental health in check. Anyway, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this show. You can let me know by emailing the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look me up on Twitter at KB Radio Network, and on other social media platforms, just look up the KB Radio Network. Don't forget that we're on YouTube as well. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever it is you're currently listening to movie goodness on the KB Radio Network. Everybody enjoy the month of July, which is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Can't wait to speak to you again. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.